Where's the cutters? There. No, it's already open. Hey, welcome in. Yeah, we've got some new Sega Saturn Clean Powers. So these are the final. I had to get an extra production run, basically, because the factory where they sourced the chips from, they weren't good quality. So we've had to have them remade once more before final production. So we've got some Sega Saturn Clean Powers to test. This is literally everything ready. So this is like a full production ready final check. So we've got to check all that. I've got a ton, to be honest. I've had the Clean Powers delivered. I've got some connectors and DC jacks for the PC Engine GT. Got some new tips from the iron. Got a new soldering iron. I've got two pocket lights here that we fitted the green screens to last week. They now want yellow. I've got my personal Game Boy that I need to now fit the Clean Light RGB. I've got the final bits here for that. And then I've got a Game Gear I also need to fix. So there's a ton at the minute going on where I need to try and sort this out, basically. So I'll just work through them. I think the Clean Powers are going to take a little time now. No, we don't have the shop in Stoke anymore. We're just online only. These, if you want this lens as well, ask specifically for the Retro 6 lens, otherwise we'll put on the Game Boy lens. And the things at the back you're on about, these things, not that one obviously, yes, they come fully loaded basically. So you won't be disappointed. So we better get started with these. The TikTok's definitely screwed up in terms of view count. I don't know why that's not working anymore. And the chat, I think the chat's just slow, but I know TikTok keep bloody limiting me because saying we're upselling things to other platforms. I don't get why they keep limiting the views all of a sudden, completely limiting it in the visuals. So TikTok's like died a death at the minute, but what can you do? So let's try and do something easy first. So let's test. In fact, I won't look at my new iron because this iron's dying. So I'm going to take a look. This is super cheap, but the key point is having the JBC style tips is like the key to all this. So I'm going to see if this is any good. And I think I ordered it with a few spare tips as well. Yes, I did. So we've got some goodies in here. I think the overhead you'll probably get a nice visual in there. So we've got the iron. There's a few size irons, iron tips. This one doesn't really say. It's normally the C210. This one's thinner, you see. This handle's nice and thin. This one's thicker. Get those two out of the way. I think that's all I've got. Oh yeah, and there's the third one. So we've got all three size JBC tips in here, but they're not really telling me what size they are, so I'll figure that one out on my own. Tons of soldering iron tips in here, just all come as part of a bundle. That solder wire will be useless. That can go in the bin straight away. And same again, solder wire, bin. We'll keep all the tips for now. And we have, yeah, nice, very, very cheaply constructed soldering iron here. So this is feels a bit plasticky, but the key is if it's going to heat up these tips and work. The sponge will get rid of as well. That can go. And the one thing I liked is I've got this little thing for the soldering iron wire. So you see on this one at the minute, it just flaps around everywhere and kind of doesn't go anywhere. So that's part of why I want to swap this out. So let's plug this in. Well, actually, I say, oh yeah, I've got the tips. I was going to say these tips are different because the problem with the soldering iron handles is often they make different versions for probably more cost reasons. So this tip, for example, is, where have I gone? Clicking away. This one, you can see we have these pins here, whereas in the back of this, they are different. So I can't quite focus that high up on this lens, but you can see the 4 pins. So that means we'll have to get the iron handles from this supplier because they use a completely different end. So not the end of the world as long as I can source them. So I'm going to wrap up my existing soldering iron for now. And put that in that box. I'll probably put the existing iron in the other box. This one can go, and I'm just going to tip all of the solder that's all in the handles away because that's going to be filled with solder. Because we might be getting this one back out if we find out this new one's no good. Right, I think that is clean enough for now. Go in that box. And now we've got all the mess over here that I want to clean up. So let's get that mini hoover. And I don't know how it's so hard to get that view count right as well. It says 4 and 5 there. Maybe look at the live stream. You can see we've got 125 people, but the viewer count on the feedback says there's 7. But I don't know why that started messing up all of a sudden. These counts are almost as good as useless, to be honest. Alright, so is it the same plug? No, it's a fixed plug. That's another downside. So I'm going to have to run this plug under the desk as well. So this is all part of the fact it's a bit cheaper than the other one. So you're losing out on the things like the connectors. They're going to be soldered directly in here with a fixed lead. And this is probably not going to be long enough either. So this is going to need an extension. I'll plug it in over here for now. It's the only place it's going to fit. And then I can do an extension lead if this turns out to be good. We didn't put this on either. So this will go on here. That can't be the way that goes. Other way. There we go. And if that now goes over here, that lead is going to drive me nuts until I fix that. But I don't know why I keep moving it back into position. I want to show it off when it's turned on. First thing we want to do is put some tips, and I'm just going to start with the one I always use, which is, I think, the largest one. I think the C245 is the largest. So this will be the tip you always see me using, C245 one, brand new. So let's give this one a go. And I think it fits in the largest of the 3 handles. So we've got 3 different sizes. One's C10, I think it is. One's C115, one's 210, and one's 245. So it's going to be the biggest one. Right, then. If that was in, I'm holding it. That's where you want it. Right, that's there. So if we turn on, look, the thing's even got any protection over the screen. Let's see if this is any good. Thought it wasn't even turning on for a minute there. So we've got a nice little screen. That's all we need. It's not even installed straight, so that's what you get for cheapness. Wonky screen. Doesn't look that bad actually, but it is ever so slightly wonky. You can see from that angle it's a little bit wonky. Set to 300, so these are little buttons. Go to 390, I normally work at. Then I presume that'll just set in a second and start going up. There we go. And let's see if this works. Yep, so the tip's wetting. That in there goes to sleep, so that's working. And now let's move this over to where I'm going to use it. And I'll obviously change this extension lead, so we don't have this extension lead running all the way across the back. I wanted this holder here to kind of hold the wire, but I think that's pretty much a gimmick. It doesn't really do anything. So it doesn't solve the problem of the wire going anywhere. So this little this wire holder is as good as useless, because I guess you'd clip it through there maybe. Yeah, it doesn't even want to go through. Yeah, I'm not even going to bother with that. I'll just take that straight off and in the bin. It's useless. So we'll just leave it as it was, but that's now shallower, which is one of the benefits. We've got more room now for that. That's much better. So we've got a bit of desk space here now, which means we can move them to there, or we could possibly even move the things a bit closer that I use, so I'm not stretching over quite as much, like that. There we go. So that little extra desk space has helped out. I guess the next thing is, does it actually work? So we need to solder something. Yeah, this TikTok view counts even worse. So 9 viewers there, and we're on 244, but just showing 9. So might as well remove that, I think. I hope Denise. Let's have a go now then. What I've got is these connectors we want to look at. So these should be for the PC Engine GT. And if I've got them right, the idea of this is going to be to fit these on this connector of the PC Engine GT. So instead of soldering a ribbon on here, I want to solder this on. Yes, it lines up nicely. Obviously, this way it'll be soldered on. And then we can tack it down if we've got some ground plane here that we can expose. If not, we'll maybe epoxy something, but we can test this if it's going to solder well by trying to solder this connector. I guess it's not the easiest one, but we can have a go, I think. So we'll get some flux, and we probably only want to tin one pad at the minute because we're testing the iron out. I'm going to solder this connector with an iron, not hot air. So let's get the new iron and let's see if this can do what we want it to. So I really want to go down and tin all the pads, but I can't. Well, this tip's actually a bit large. So that's tin that easily, but yeah, this tip's a little bit too big. So for this, I'm just going to try and tin one in. And that lines up with pin one well. Yes, it does. That looks all lined up good. Building, we're kind of just testing a load of stuff. I've just got a new iron I'm just testing out. So we've got this this nice Al Cheapo AliExpress 50 quid iron. If I can get the camera pointing at it. So this little cheap one, but it seems to be working good. Bit plasticky, but you put it in, goes to sleep, pull it out, it works, and I've got decent quality tips. So that's all I need for doing this job. We've got all these to do. We've got 2 Game Boys to change the backlight to. We've got my Game Boy that I want to fit the Cleanlight RGB new product to. We've got DC power jacks for the PC Engine I need to test. This connector we're testing. Sega Saturn Clean Powers. A whole bunch of stuff we're just working through at the minute. So I'm just testing this iron first, that it's sold as well. And I can barely see without the scope for this, but I'm going to try, even without the scope, to solder this. So that looks nice and level either end. And to be honest, that looks nicely soldered already. So I'll lift that board up so it sits like that. I'm just going to try and almost drag solder my way down this, I think. Yeah, I think it seems to be doing okay. It's hard to judge because this is obviously the new PC Engine board, and I've not really done this exact work on the board before, so I'm not sure of the thermal profile and how it would normally flow, but it seems to be flowing all right. Seems a little bit like it's not picking up the heat, like for example on there, but that could just be a contact issue. We'll know more the more I use it, but see how that's not catching that pin. Yeah, I think it's just more of a contact thing. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. I'm not sure. I mean, it's gone on nice and clean. Like the pins are perfectly fine. Just felt a bit more like it was not flowing. More had a feeling like the iron wasn't passing the heat, but it clearly has because it's soldered on. So it's passed the first test, I guess. It's literally soldered that nicely. So there's nothing at all wrong with them. Yeah, all nice and clean. This camera, very expensive one. So it is, we go up. It's got a Blackmagic Cinema 6K cinema camera, and then we've also got the optics are a 70 to 200, I think it is, Canon Cine lens, so cinema grade stuff. That's the only reason you're getting so good. This floaty one I'm using is an OBS bot or OBS bot, however you want to pronounce it, so I can kind of zoom in and move around and get good angles, but you can see the quality difference. It's good, but it's not, you know, it's not going to get anywhere near that overhead one. So this is fully zoomed in, and see if I can get in focus. So there's your, it's not bad, you know, pretty good visual. But if you compare that to, you know, that's the difference. And this obviously isn't, oh yeah, that is all the way zoomed in, but it's cropped from 6K to 1K as well. So could be a lot more detailed than that, but I can't stream at 6K to be ridiculous. So that connector works good. I want to secure it to the board though, with at least one side. So let's try and grind this side away. I'm loving the, again, the TikTok numbers. So there's got to be a percentage rating to this. We've got 16 on the count. Shall I just point a camera at this instead? And we have 326 there to 16. Somebody can do the math. Maybe it's a percentage of real viewers. So let's try and grind this down. I think there's copper under here. Got that cage coming off. No, there isn't. So we don't have the ground plane there, so we'll probably have to epoxy that in to give it strength. And it shouldn't matter too much because obviously we're going to pull this out and connect it up, and it's, to be honest, it's that long. That's fairly solid. So I don't know whether we need to bother epoxying it, but no, that's actually rock solid. You're not even going to move that unless you really bend it, so you don't need to tack those pads down. That's perfectly fine. So that's now got the connector on. The other side, which is packed away somewhere, we'll do the same thing. We'll put one of them connectors on the cartridge reader side, and I'm still waiting on the ribbons, but then we can connect a game up to this after to test. So that's the, those connectors are now good for PC Engine. So I'm going to put them in the PC Engine tub. And we also have these DC jacks. So the DC jack on here, we also want to test. We've already got one on here. I nicked it off one of mine, I think it was. Or is this the customer's? No, this is the customer's. But I did want to source these DC jacks. And, or no, actually, I did. The customers did have too much damage, so this is a one I had. But this is a brand new one. And we're pretty sure it's going to be this. I think it was a 3.5mm DC jack. So if we look at that, you can see the width is perfect. The footprint on the bottom lines up perfect. So these three holes here, you can see them 3 pins lining up, so that works perfect. The hole looks ever so slightly a different size, but it's probably close enough that it's got no problem. So let's just measure that with a vernier, and then I'll have to try it with an actual PC Engine GT DC jack. So that one is 3.86, and the original is 4.0. So you're talking 0.1 mil. There's a slight difference, 0.1, 0.2 mil. That I highly doubt is going to be a problem. If the plastic was that tight when you're inserting it for the DC jack, you'd struggle getting it in and out. So I'm pretty sure that's going to be a good replacement. So again, I'm going to put that in the tub for now, and then when I come to build the next one, I'll double check that. And then to put these irons away as well for now. The extra ones, because I don't use the smaller ones. I rarely find a need for them. And then I've got all these tips with it. So I've got tons of these already. I just thought I might as well get them with it. But you can see this is what most people think they need to solder with when they're doing micro soldering. So here's an example of the size tip that people think they need. And this is the size I use. So you can see instead of using a little pinpoint, I use a whopping big tip, and you can still solder even the tiny stuff. I keep going to put my soldering iron further over as well because it's now a lot closer. The connector, this flap connector thing, it's basically goes from the PC Engine GT over to the cartridge reader. So part of the thing that you read the games from. There should just be a ribbon, but I've made it into now a removable connector, which is obviously much nicer. So I can get this installed again as default when we get these boards. So these tips, I'm just going to, again, put these all in with the spares. I could maybe do with a slightly smaller tip than what I've got on because it's a bit bigger than what I'm used to using. So let's see if I've got a smaller one. If not, I'll get used to that one. There we go. I think this one's slightly smaller. So turn it off at the back. Then it has a little remover as well. So this this iron, like most of them, you can see this bit at the back. You're meant to put your tips underneath here and pull up to remove them without burning your fingers. So that's worked quite well. Make sure it's off when you insert the new one, and then just put the new one in. So that's the new one. And if we go over here, I'll get the old one out with tweezers because it'll still be hot. And this is the other one I've just put in. So just slightly smaller. This is more the size I'm used to. So we can turn that back on now, and I'll keep this larger tip in the soldering iron because, like in the soldering iron tray, because if I ever need to do, where's that gone? I must have moved that while I was talking. Where's the camera gone? Whee. It's gone all over. When you're getting rid of holes and you try and clear some holes out, the bigger tip might come in handy. So that now is cooled enough to put away. Yeah, you can hot swap the tips, but when I've done that before, I've bent the tips or broke them, normally on the smaller ones. So I don't like using the connector in there for doing the hot swap. I can pull it out because you're lifting away, but I don't like pushing in. I tend to bend the tips if I do that, so I just do it manually. Any good tips for newbies? Pretty much watch what we're doing and watch the technique. So good flux and a good soldering iron. But to be honest, this soldering iron so far, the little bit of work I've done on it seems good, and this is £50, so nice and cheap. So you don't need to spend too much. I would go with soldering irons that use these tips though, C245s. So just search when you're using a soldering iron like a C245 soldering iron, and you should be good. We also have 500 viewers on TikTok now. It's like the record by far, while it's sitting saying 13. Right, so all those are going to go away. And then we can do, what shall we do next? I'll tell you what, we'll get these Game Boys out of the way. So these are Game Boy Lights, the rarer, more expensive Game Boys. They're basically a Game Boy Pocket with a backlight, an original one. So we need, let's start with the gold. We did these last week. As we know, one of these screens was quite delicate. The difference with the Game Boy Light is it uses AA batteries instead of AAA, because the Pocket used AAA, and obviously that's quite low in terms of how much battery power you have. So the Game Boy Light upgraded to AAs, and they last a lot longer. Partly because you can see it's got a built-in backlight. This isn't the original. This is the one we fit last week. So you can have it turned on with no backlight, or you can have a nice backlight, and that's a nice green. But the customer now wants yellow. So it's going to be an easy swap. So it's just a basic base rate for this one. And if we crack this open, zoom out, you can see, like most Game Boys, they have these tri-wing screws in here. So you just need a, what tip do I use? A Y00. So that Y00 works pretty good. Sitting in alley traffic watching. In a Tesla with the YouTube app on, maybe. Have they put YouTube on it yet? I think there's Netflix on it now. I sold mine a few years ago, so I don't know what updates they've done to it. The C210, better for that kind of work. It can be for some people. I don't bother with the small tips. They just don't pump enough heat in, and you don't really need it. If you're using flux, then it's all surface tension when you get to this level of small components, at least for me anyway. Right, so that's the tri-wings out. If we take the back off, move the screws out of the way, this shouldn't take long at all because we've already done all the mods on this. This was the one that was fragile, because I remember this being on, it's already had work done, and is a little bit fragile, so we'll be super careful with this one. Electric screwdriver, I do. But the only exception is probably the tri-wings and small posies, because I've got a larger tip in this, so that's like a little bit excessive. So on the Game Boys, I tend to use the normal screwdriver, but everything else, yeah, electric. I think I've got one more. Ah, nice, we've got a few more people on the Twitch as well then. That's something that, the irony is the maximum Twitch views was like, I think 7 people so far. We're just not known on there at all yet. So, and yeah, I think it's probably one of the best platforms for it. We have the wires I've attached here. So these red wires are the ones I've soldered in the last stream. So we just need to be careful when we lift up from here, the speaker comes with it. But when we go over here, I did it so that we can fold over like this if we were going to service it, and the wires are long enough. So you can see nice and easy for us now. All we need to do is desolder these 2 wires, and not that it matters because I can figure it out anyway, but let's try and remember which way they go. So outer one to inner one, basically. We will desolder this wire, desolder that one, and now the backlight in here. What do I use for washing off flux? Just IPA and a melamine sponge, basically, and it comes off nice and clean. So this backlight slides out. We can just be careful with this one. Pull it this way. This is the most fragile part here, so we don't want to bend that. That's the green one out now. So let me put that up here. We're at 600 viewers on TikTok now. Let's try and get that to 1,000. I don't think we've ever had more than 200 viewers on the TikTok, so we're getting tons at the minute. We're at 600 already. Now this one is going to go in, and it goes with the resistors up. So all we've got to do is slide this in, like so. Solder these wires back down, and then we'll have a nice bright yellow backlight. Pull focus a bit there, get it nice and sharp. We will turn on these. Right, this iron seems to be working as good as my previous one, so no complaints so far. Tap the solder on there. Tap this one on there. I'm liking how much desk space it's saved me. To be honest, that's the main benefit of this iron. It's so thin that I've got more desk space now. So all we have to do now is flip this over. Nothing else has moved. Flip it back around, keeping them wires there. And we're back in. So let's put the screws back in. We have the posies first in here, and then we'll look at the difference and see which one you prefer, whether you prefer the green or the yellow. I personally think the green's going to be nicer, but obviously the customer wants the yellow, so they've seen the green. They also had us doing a blue one a few months ago. They had the original electroluminescent panel, not an LED one. This panel we're using as an LED, so these are pure 0603 LEDs in a strip. The original was electroluminescence, but I've modded this to use LEDs. The customer already had an electroluminescent blue panel off us probably about 6 to 8 months ago, so they've obviously got quite a few Game Boy pockets. That tip's quite the right size for them screws. Let's connect this up. Do you think yellow's going to be the best? I think it'll be nice when we see it, but the Game Boys were... the original Game Boys were greenish on the tint, obviously not backlit, but they were generally greenish. The original Game Boy Pocket Lights were bluish and greenish. Nothing's ever been yellowish, so it's not exactly original as well, I think. But it's still going to look good. I don't think this is at all going to look bad. So let's place... power switch first. That goes there. Yep, so place that over. And I'll tell you what, let's screw it together. Although last time this gave me bad luck. I screwed this over about 6 times last time, because every time we put it together the screen wasn't working. It's 650 viewers now on TikTok, so we need another... What do we need? Another 250 to get us over 1,000. If anyone wants to share, because TikTok keep blocking the viewers at the minute, so they're really hindering the spread. So if you want to jump on there and get it liked and shared, that'd be awesome. No, that cable won't be a cold joint. It took seconds to cool down. It's a flexible ribbon, so it certainly isn't a cold joint. That soldered fully. What you might have seen is a bubble at the end of the enameled cable where the solder won't flow over the enamel because it's insulated. Yeah, but no, that's far from a cold joint. I've been doing this for 15 years soldering, so I can quite easily see if it's soldered right or not. I wouldn't worry about that too much. Yeah, the one I've showed is much brighter because it's obviously an LED panel. I brought one, funnily enough, off a guy on our Discord. I just liked what he was doing, and he made some really nice clear Game Boy lights, so I brought one off him, and it has got the original electroluminescence in. There we go. So that's the yellow. Where's the contrast? There we go. So we've got yellow there, and let's put in some batteries here, and I'll go grab mine as well. I'll go grab my actual genuine original electroluminescent one, and you can see which one you prefer. So we have this. There's the green, and now let me just go and grab my other one. 2 seconds. Right, there we go. And this is the original, which you can't even see in the studio lights. So that's the 3. Let's bring them in. I'll have to kind of go over. So you got the original that you literally can't see, the green and the yellow. So if I now, I don't think I can zoom out anymore on that. So for the verticals you won't see. Let me move to that view a minute and turn the lights off. Wow, you still can't see. So that light is on, I can guarantee you. But if you see there, you can now just about see a green. So I'll go off and on. You can clearly see it coming off and on. And this is the kind of pleasure of, I think, the electroluminescent. I play this every night now. So I've got the Pokemon trading card game. I love this. And then you've got these LED backlights you can see are in the dark, super bright. So they just overpower that and you can't even see. But if I show you, no wait, this Soldering Iron is definitely meant for me. Look at this. It's got a coffee cup on. It's literally, it knows I drink coffee. And I've got a Soldering Iron. That's telling me I need a coffee now. That's what that's doing. Yeah, so if you haven't played wow, that even looks dark with the lights off. That, like, I can see that with my eyes, but there's like, can I put a little bit of light on? Try and get it showing up on camera. Yeah, so that's hard to give you a visual of what it looks like to the eye, but that's because it's electroluminescent. So with it off, it's like that. With it on, it's just a very subtle hint. But that is, like, to the eye, that's more than viewable. Like, it's lovely. But one of my favourites, yeah. Let me turn the lights back on. So, yeah, let me have a quick play of this. Now I've turned it on. We're at 800 viewers nearly on TikTok, 200 more, and we've hit a milestone there. So, yeah, let me just quickly show you this. If you've not played this game before, honestly, really cool. This was turned off during a duel, so I must have, I was either losing or I ran out of time last night. I was probably losing. So we've got the option here to, let's turn those other ones off a minute so they don't drain battery. You walk around, this is obviously not Ash, it's just a random person. But the idea is you have, in the status, you have like these badges, these medals, so similar to like collecting the gym badges. You've got like electric, water, grass, psychic, all these things. You have decks that you make. So I've got just a crazy, all I want is Charmander and Charizard deck. So that's all I've got Pokemon-wise. Just Charizard is what I go for. And then a couple of Growlithe and Arcanines, and then tons of energy. So pretty much a deck full of nothing but energy cards and Charizard. And then you go into battle people. So this is the one I've been trying to win. The soldering I'm using is 60% lead. So it's leaded solder. No ways have you got the same iron. It's working good so far. So yeah, we'll go into this and you'll see. You shuffle the decks. It's pretty much like when you play Pokemon, if you haven't played the Pokemon game itself. But I just love it. I love the music. I love the game. So now what we've got to do is put down our Pokemon. So we've got a Growlithe we can put down. Lickitung's got tons of energy and is just a tank. So we're going to chuck Lickitung down. He needs one energy card and then he sits there and is just a tank for you while you get your bench all powered up. So I'll put down the 2 Growliths. Guess not on Facebook. Oh yeah, sorry. There's loads of comments coming in. Just ask a question on Facebook. I spotted that now. Right, we're going second because we've got Tails. Bill lets you draw 2 cards from the deck. The other thing you have to be aware of is you don't want... this is turned into me playing games and not working, but still. You want to be careful that you don't drain your deck. So when it swaps, you'll see, as you're drawing cards, if you run out of... it's put me to sleep, a little sad. If you run out of cards, then you lose. And I'm still asleep. Great. This is a really hard trainer to beat. So say they've got 47. If they start using things that draw too many cards, then they also lose. So you can try to play the long game as well, just survive. Going to use the Pokeball. And let's see if I get heads. Yes. So now I can search the deck. So I can go straight for... I can either go for a Charmeleon, to go one level up, but instead I'm going to grab my Charizard. So I've got him because there's only one in the deck. And then what I can start doing is I can let Lickitung just act as a dump, and we haven't actually got a Charmander yet either. So we might as well chuck an energy on Lickitung. 32 XG I can do, no problem. There's nothing technically difficult about them. 60 Hertz mod, we're asleep so we can't attack. The 60 Hertz mod, there's an auto Hertz mod, I think it's called. Just a flex ribbon that solders on. Super simple. So no problems with that. If there's something not offered, then just reach out and I can make sure it's on there. But yeah, I'll be on this for ages. These matches take like 20 minutes, so I'll leave it at that. But trust me, if you haven't played the Pokemon trading card game, you definitely want to play it. I love this game. It's really good. So that is what we're actually doing. That's these two. So I've got to do the other one, so we might as well chuck the yellow one, because the customer obviously wants the yellow. But I don't know. I like the green. It reminds me more of... don't know, it just reminds me more of Game Boy. Yellow doesn't do anything for me. Doesn't feel like it's the right colour. But like I say, customer wants that. They've got a blue already. They've seen the green. So let's do one more on this. Make sure I get my batteries back, because you won't believe how many of these we get through. The amount of batteries we lose by forgetting to take them out of consoles, and customers get loads of batteries is crazy. Right, so he's done. He can go out of the way. I need more space at the minute. Where am I going to put all this stuff I'm doing? That can go down there for now then. Let's get this one open again. So this is just move my personal one out of the way. Yeah, this one is an imitation of the Famicom. The Famitsu. So Famitsu in Japan is a gaming magazine. So you can see this Famitsu, and this was a clone. This is like a clone shell of the original. So this is meant to look like the limited edition. If you search Game Boy Light Famitsu and look for the real ones, they're going for £2,500 sealed. They're going for like £600-700 regular. And this is like a nice restored one. So one of the people on our Discord was actually doing these up. I've seen them, loved it, and brought one off him. And it's literally one of my favourite Game Boys now. I love playing it. I love the original screen. Like when you're used to seeing all the IPSs, when you go back to a true original with a backlight so you can use it. I think this is honestly probably the best Game Boy you can get until you go to maybe a front-lit colour after. So let's go with unscrewing this. Yeah, it seems like most people like the green as well. Ooh, 850 on TikTok now. Why is it saying 15 as well? This is crazy. We need to... If people are on TikTok, can you actually tell me which is right? Do we have 15 people on? Or do we have what TikTok's telling us? And we have like 850 people. So it's either 15 or 850. So one of them's going completely wrong. With these, we are just changing the backlight. So we have... These are Game Boy Lights, which are basically Game Boy Pockets with a backlight. And we are just swapping the backlight from green at the minute to yellow. And then we will be, after that, we've got my personal GBA, which is here, which has now got fingerprints again, because I was playing this one last night. I was testing this new product, the GBA Clean Juice AA. It lasted, this is just Amazon Basics, so we've just got these in, which are 2,000 milliamp hour, you can just about see there. I'm having batteries made that are 2,500, so 20% larger. This lasted 5.5 hours with this all modded, with the UV lights on, the screen on, the amp on. We got 5.5 hours. So we should get about 6.5 hours with 2.5 amp batteries. But I've got a new Cleanlight RGB we also need to test with a new baby regulator. So it's just all new products at the minute. I've got this as well. So the new Sega Saturn Clean Power we need to test. It's just loads. I'm just trying to... I don't know how much I'm going to get through. I've got probably an hour and a half. And then I should get most of it done in the hour and a half, I reckon. UC 15, but I think the user settings can impact how they show up. Something. Yeah, I think what it is the. I think TikTok is still limiting, because I normally get 150 to 200 people on TikTok, and the last couple of days it keeps popping up saying I'm selling stuff, and I'm not. Like, I'm working away. So they're like limiting. I think they're limiting the exposure. So whether it's like 860 people on there, I don't think it is. I think it's just limiting it because the last couple of times it says I was selling stuff, so it's not pushing it at all now. It was literally hundreds, and now we've got like 50, 60,000 people on TikTok, and we've got like 10 people on the stream now. It just isn't pushing it to anybody. That's why I said if people can kind of share it, it might help get the exposure again. Viewers, probably, don't know why, but I'm just trying to grow the Twitch just because it seems like the most popular platform in terms of live streaming. But to be honest, YouTube seems to be the most popular now. Facebook was like 20 odd people, and YouTube has sat around the 30, pretty average, like stable there. But the TikTok has obviously gone. We get more people on TikTok than anything. But I don't know. It seems to be booting me off at the minute, unfortunately. So it doesn't really matter where, as long as people see it. I'm just working away doing my job. But it's nice to get more people viewing, so there's a bit more interaction and people can enjoy it. It's the old one off. And then now if we slide that one out again, so this is the green panel coming out. And we'll put him up there with the other. There you go, we've now got a notification on TikTok: gifting suspended, behaviour is not in line with our policies, gifting is suspended. Leveraging personal financial needs or causes for gifts. So it's like what Rusty's new bed fund is, a personal gain, is it? I don't get TikTok. I'm going to end up just deleting the TikTok at this rate. So this is like what you deal with. None of the other platforms give a shit. But yeah, there's the TikTok again. Just constantly doing stupid stuff. So I don't know. I'll just stop streaming on TikTok if this carries on. It's just a joke. It just causes more headaches than anything. I've had to set up a custom thing called Tickfinity just for the chat to work. They keep kicking it off and binning it. Like, I just don't get that. This, for one, this Rusty's new bed fund has nothing to do with TikTok. It's on Streamlabs. It's got absolutely nothing to do with it. I don't get it. And best of it is I've got a blue tick on TikTok. So I might as well appeal to the manager and say, do you mind actually looking at it and what the hell's going on? Why do you keep kicking stuff off on this stream? Don't know. I'll deal with that whenever. I just find it funny, the politics in the TikTok side. That's always been the one that's had least policies for me. They seem to just not like me streaming whatsoever. Yeah, thanks for buying me stuff. I think it's much appreciated. It's nice to hear when people enjoy what we do. Put this back here. So it was the outside on the inside. That's all we have to remember. Yeah, TikTok probably are partnered up with our rivals. There's something going on. It's just a bit stupid. I've got a direct message, like a direct email to some account manager or something with being whatever the blue tick thing is on TikTok. So I can reach out to a real person at least and ask them to at least confirm what is the problem. So, what am I doing wrong to just do my day job on a stream and you're complaining, basically? It's like, if I can't put Rusty's new bed fund in the corner, then I won't bother streaming, because Rusty does need a new bed. It doesn't really matter where it goes, people. I don't need the money. It's just more for entertainment and pleasure, and it's nice to see. But yeah, all the rules are a bit crazy. All right, so that one's in. We will now put the posies back in. yeah, DMGs. I want to get back into the DMGs. I'm just starting to, thanks to that Game Boy Light I brought. I want to start offering the Game Boy Pockets, but with a backlight. So they're a bit more like the Game Boy Lights and the original screens, obviously. Everybody is doing the IPS screens now. I kind of want to do some of the original. And after that, I want to get the Game Boy Originals going with the classic bivert and backlight mods, if you will. I think just going more back to the old school, the things we did before we had the IPS mods. I think the originality got lost a little bit in. I know we do the IPS mods and we make them as well, but I think there's just something about the originality of the screens you can't beat. It's nice to have the option to go back and forward between an IPS and an original, because like the Game Boy Light I've got, for example, is not good on motion. They were never good at fast-paced games. So it is nice to be able to have a modern screen for playing the motion, like games that have got good motion, which is pretty much anything except Pokemon card games and RPGs. But yeah, there's something about the nostalgia, the kick of turning it on, it actually being original. You just can't beat that, and I want to be able to sell them as well and offer them, because it's something that we don't even really do. We moved away from it for IPS, and I think we should have kept both options, basically. What video game is this? This is a Game Boy Light. So this is a Game Boy Pocket with a backlight, basically. So you see it says Game Boy Light. This is all original. The backlight isn't. We've just modded this for a yellow backlight. But yeah, this is fully original. Gifting suspended for 7 days. Appeal. I've clicked an appeal. They can listen to me rant on the live about that as well. This Game Boy is just having a backlight. We worked on it last week on stream, or a week or so ago, probably 2 weeks ago now, maybe. And we're just changing the backlight colour now from the green that they had installed to the yellow. So I'll show you that in a second. Ever worked on Neo Geo Pocket colours? Yep, we stopped working on them. But the replacement screens, the IPS screens, they probably improved them by now, but they used to die after 6 months maybe. I don't know whether they were like overheating the regulators or something was going on. But we just stopped working on quite a few consoles in order to keep up with the workflow. So we don't work on them anymore, but yeah, I have worked on them. I've made a de-hum kit and a clean amp for the audio as well, so you can get nice loud audio and clean audio. But that's as far as I got with them. We stopped working on them at the point of me pretty much making that. Right then, is this going to work like the other? Yep, there we go. So that's yellow. So we have now the 2 yellows, and obviously the contrast wheel will change the contrast. Let's see what my Pokemon trading card game looks like on the yellow. Yeah, I've definitely pissed somebody off at TikTok. It's 3 days in a row the streams are getting blocked or spammed for. I think the other reason was soliciting sales the last time. There we go. Yeah, I can't get used to the yellow. It's a nice, vibrant colour, but I can't get used to that colour. I prefer my original electroluminescent, if I'm being honest. I think it's just bright enough for you, like, so you don't want anything else glaring in your face. At least I don't. Did I just click something that stopped that? Oh yeah, I didn't click yes. No, I find most things fairly easy to repair. I think the retro consoles are one of the hardest, because you're dealing with a lot of unknown variables. You can have rotten traces, broken chips. You can have custom ASICs that there's no info for, no schematics for. But I used to do, funnily enough, constantly talking to TikTok, but if you looked at my TikTok profile and scrolled through the pre-made videos I used to do, I've worked on everything, worked on the most random stuff you could imagine. Fire-breathing apparatus, hot and cold temperature sensor probe things, laptops, you name it. I just enjoy working on random stuff sometimes, but now we're that busy with this, we don't do the random stuff anymore. We just don't have the time. So we've limited it to pretty much what we work on is currently what we work on, because of trying to keep up, basically. Yeah, I think everyone agrees the yellow, that personally not their preference, not mine, but you know, that's for the customer now, so they've got them two modded. Put the game back in mine so I can play that later. What is next? Right, we can put this PC Engine GT away, and we can either do, let's do the Sega Saturn Clean Power, because I'll use mine last. That's going to be quite a job, and it's technically mine, so this is an existing product, but redesigned. So this powers the Sega Saturn, and we have, it's basically a USB-C power board for the Sega Saturn. So these are the brackets that sit in the back where the DC jack would go. So you can use white or black. This is the USB. So this slides through this port here, like so. Nice tight fit. You have the screws, which they've sent two. Good job, I've checked that. They sent two little ones, you need four, and two big ones. The two big ones go through here to hold the whole thing in the shell. And then the four little ones that should be hold this in place. From there, you plug this cable in. So that's sitting in your console. This comes all the way over, goes into this board here, like so. Then the original power switch goes here on the Sega Saturn to turn it on and off. Alexa's now talking back to me. And then there's an on-off power test, so you don't need to plug in the power switch. You can just use this instead to test it. And then you can set the voltages for different versions of Saturn. And then finally, you connect this up. You either slide this down on some revisions, or you connect this for the VA Zeros, basically. So that's the product. We know all that works. This is just a new version here, so all this is new. So I need to test the load on this. This is the key thing I need to test. Yeah, I said this soldering iron is definitely made for me. It shows a coffee symbol. I love that. Like, how convenient is that I always drink coffee, and I think every time that shows up, we should go and make one, to be honest. Which I bet this shows up every 3 minutes, but I'm up for that. I can do a stream where I drink coffee every time it shows up. Right, so testing this, we're going to have to zoom out actually, because this is going to require quite a bit of stuff to test. So I could just plug this in a Sega Saturn, but what we're going to do, because I did this as kind of a, I don't know why I did it, just because I could. I made these chips so that they can handle 10 amps, so absolutely ridiculous amounts of power. So this board can power 3 Sega Saturns. If you daisy chain this into 3 Sega Saturns, this one board can power all 3. Don't know why I did it, I just could. So I'm going to test it in that fashion. We're going to make sure you can also handle the current on there. So we need some big, hefty current, or electronic loads as they're called, that basically pull current. So this is all custom made and glued together, powered by a USB cable. So this will power all of these loads up, and then we can solder all these wires together, which the funny thing was, on one of the prefix videos that I'd showing this off, you'll see me melting these wires because we're passing that much power through. It was melting the wires. To save me getting my giant bench power supply out here that can handle 80 amps, I'm just going to power it through a USB plug and test one rail at a time to make sure they don't collapse. Otherwise, it's even more setup. And I know this design works, it's just making sure they've built it correct at the factory. So I'm going to solder to ground. And this is a super heavy 3-ounce copper board in terms of there's a lot of copper on to dissipate the heat. So I'm liking this iron. That's there. Where is VN? VN is going to be on that USB pad. I should have probably put a VN pad That would have made some good sense, to be honest. Should I really not put a V in? I've got a V in on the DC. Yeah, I suppose it doesn't matter, it's only for my testing. So I'll tap off V in over here, which actually, yeah, that's a point. Let me just check this is the right way around. I bet I haven't got a USB plug. I've got one here and it's not that powerful, but let's see if this works. It's the same copper as the PS5 pretty much, strangely. So I think the PS5 is 3 ounce copper and so is this. Power on test, that's right. So let me just double check something. Obviously it's working, I just think these wires are actually coloured wrong, which is no biggie if they're physically working, but I'm pretty sure that black wire is the positive and the red is the negative. So let me just, yeah. So this wire, not that it matters too much, but this flex wire going between is actually coloured backwards. I don't know whether it's the samples that we've had made here, or that's been the case all along. It doesn't mean anything realistically, it's just people would expect, if they're looking at the colours, for it to be that way. You know, be the other way, basically. So I will now take, oh yeah, I'm just gonna plug in the USB for now. So the USB can only provide so much power. This is the USB that's powering my keyboard at the minute. So don't expect anything huge off this, but it should be able to power, I can't remember what the limits are. 5 amps per channel will be enough. I think it's the Sega Saturn only pulls, let me pull up the datasheet. The notes I made. Hardware, Sega Saturn, resources. I wrote down somewhere what each channel pulled. Can't find it there. So let me just open up instead the schematic. And what I'll do is load these channels down as much as the can be loaded down, which I actually think I made it so they can all do 10 amps now. So we'll load it up to as far as we can go and check the power rail's still stable. So that means this one, first the grounds, we need to tap this on ground so that the electronic loads can actually load down the board, because that's where it's going to sync the current to. So that's the ground on, and now this left channel is this wire, this one's the middle, and obviously this one's the end. So we could load down all channels at the same time, which I'll solder them all on. So we've got the 3 volt, the 5 volt, and the 12 volt, but we'll only turn them on and off in stages because the USB plug will not be able to manage this level of power, like the one I'm using, obviously, because this thing can literally sink 100 watt of power, this tiny board. Right, so that's there, and I also made it run even cooler. I did a lot of work to get this thing running cool. Right, so I was going to check, wasn't I, the design? Let me just open up the schematic and check what I set this up to, because I've done, well, I do different designs every day of the week, so I forget what I've done after about 2 days. I forget what I've even made. I made it run cooler by, these chips are quite advanced regulator chips. So you do a lot. You can see how many components are on these. If I zoom in, it's a very low level controlled board. So each one of these is a regulator with quite a lot of control chips. We've got the inductors being a really low ESR. I've noticed those are missing. I think I've probably told the factory make sure they're missing. Can't remember what that short was for. I did something on these, can't remember. I'll have to look at the schematic. But yeah, basically this chip can run and you can change the frequency it runs at, you can change the feedback, and you can change some biasing caps. So the main thing I figured out was the T-on time of the inductors, getting them to run at about between 300 and 400 megahertz for the lower voltages and 600 for the higher, just happens to be the point at which these run cooler, because these are always primed permanently. Because the high current regulators, they basically sit and they're permanently loaded. So they're loaded as if you're going to run 10 amps through them at all times. So this will run warm But if you load it down with 10 amps, it doesn't even change temperature. It's already fully loaded. That's the way this design works, and that's how they're meant to work. So high current chips that are designed like this, they don't like sit idle and then ramp up. They can do, but I've got this sat basically maxed out at all times. So the temperature it runs at is always the same. Even if you're dead shorted this board and put, 100 watt through it, it's not going to change temperature. So a lot went into it, but let's see if hopefully this build works. So we have the loads on. Let's plug the power in. And now they're on. So the lights are on there. You can actually see easier on the overhead. All the lights are on because we've got it turned on. These tell you when it's good. So all them lights being on is what we want. And if we look at these now, you got 3.2, 5 and 9 effectively. And again, I wouldn't worry too much about these measurements because you're also going to have volts drop through these cables. So when we load down this 3.2 volts channel as it's showing, if we do, we've got constant current, we have no amps set at the minute. So we've got there 3 amps. It wants to load down 3 amps. So let's just try that. Loading down with 3 amps. And you can see this will grow. This is going to be more so this USB cable. I've noticed when it does this strange thing where it doesn't want to load down the amps. It's these electronic loads monitoring feedback. That one's running fine. Let's move over to this one. This has got 1.5 amps. Let's just load that down. That's now pulling 1.5. See, that goes straight away to 1.5. It's just a glitch in these electronic loads. I don't know why it does this sometimes, like really slowly creeps up. And at the 12 volt or the 9 volt, in this case, 2 amps, let's turn that on. If this USB can handle all them, which it looks like it is, we're now loading down the 9 volt with 2 amps, the 5 volt with 1.5 amps, the 3 volt with 3 amps, and it's all running perfectly fine. I'm not sure how much this USB can handle, so let's just up. I know the board can handle more, but let's just rank this up, 2.5 amps. And then you see the 2.5 amps has collapsed there. So that could be the USB power. So we can turn off, say, the other ones. We can unplug and replug to reset. And then we can go back up, say, with these off. We'll load down just this channel and check. This can load down 2.5. So you can see there's nothing wrong with the 2.5 load. It's the USB that just maxes out. So we'll leave that one off, and just load down, say, the 5 volt rail. So you got 3.5 amps, no problem. And now it's pulling that much power. The fan's kicked in. Go to 4.5, 5.5. And let me also check while we're here, what did I actually set the limit to? I set the limit to 6.5 amps on this one. So that's where it should like limit itself to. So 6.5, you can see pulling 6.5 amps, no problem. Board sitting there, no either. Nothing at all wrong. So this is already, the Sega Saturn had pulled, I think, 1 amp on the 5 volt rail. So this is already 6.5 times what the Sega Saturn had tried to pull. I saw a comment. So yeah, what we're doing, basically we have a prototype, well, not a prototype, this is the pre-production run of the Sega Saturn Clean Power, a USB-C replacement power board for the Sega Saturn. And I'm stress testing it basically. So this tiny board at the minute, we've maxed out the 5 volt rail at 6.5 amps. So turning that on now, this board is now providing 6.5 amps on the 5 volt rail here. And it's just making sure the assembly is nice and good. You can see as well, you think it drops to 4.7, it doesn't. That is volts drop through this wire. So if we instead measure the voltage at this pin here with the multimeter, where it's supplying the power. So if I get this, go over here, go onto here, where can that be viewed? Just about see there. If I measure the voltage from ground to there, you can see we've got the 4.9, not the 4.7 that the electronic load reads. And that's a common mistake people can make when they're doing testing, like high current testing. They can actually see and look at the voltages on here and think there's a problem. That's just volts drop over the cable. So 5 volt rail is good. The 3 volt rail I've got set to Ooh, 8.8 amps. So let's see if we can max that. I mean, that's ridiculous, but let's see if we can max it out at 8.8. I've done this test before and have done, but it's whether this USB plug I've got can even do that. So 3, 4, and see how this time it's just ramped up perfectly fine. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is crazy. 10. 10 amps that's pulling. That's even over spec. And it's just sitting there like nothing's happening. So that's the 3 volt rail. Perfect as well on a crazy 10 amp. And oh yeah, this is, funnily enough, that is actually, I remember now, the reason I did this, the reason I made this board so crazy is because I want to put this in the Xbox OG and other boards as well. So I wanted to make this design capable of every possible retro console. And now I can just drop these modular, almost, I was tempted also to make this regulator a module, and I still might, that then solders in to clean power versions. So if, say, one of your regulators dies as well, you can almost modularly snap in a new regulator and have it running at a certain voltage. And these can all then be any voltage and any rating up to 10 amps. So I could rapidly design the original Xbox clean power, and I don't have to design anything. So that was actually why I made this so crazy power hungry. I forgot all about that. Right, so this is a 9 volt rail at the minute. The other test we can do is flick the switch to change it to 12 volts. And there we go, that's saying 11.2. So I probably need to tell the factory to check those resistors, because that should be 12 volts. That's quite a bit under. So that is something I'll note, just to make sure they put 12 volts in. Turn it on. And that is collapsing, but have I got that set in the schematic to be a lot lower? I've got that set to be a 2 amp limit. So that's actually, that will be the 2 amp limit of the actual, the clean power, set up to say, don't allow more than 2 amps to be pulled, because that's the DVD drive and you don't want it pulling more. So that is actually the limit on the schematic being set. And you go down. I don't think you do need more than 10 amps on the OG per channel. I think they pull 7.6 on the 5 volt rail. I don't think, if you actually put a bench through the Xbox OG, they don't pull over 10 amps on a single rail. I'm pretty sure. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure they don't. So that is sitting at the 1 amp fine, and the 2 amp still runs, like the 3 amp will probably run, which it does. You're just getting volts drop over the cable and the fan kicking in. So this is more than capable of drawing the power. So the final test I'll do for that is I'll just get Zach chuck this in an actual Sega Saturn and make sure it works. But that is looking like another success. So it's not normal. We don't normally have this many things go right on stream. Normally everything I touch goes wrong. Let's just take these test wires off. I just need to tell the factory about the 11.2. They need to tweak the resistor to get 12 volts out of that. It's just slightly off. And then that's nothing. I don't need new samples for that. They can test that themselves, basically. They probably just haven't used a high enough tolerance resistor for that. It needs to be very accurate. We've just finished stress testing the living crap out of this Sega Saturn Clean Power. We just loaded it down with like 10 amps on each channel, and it's survived perfectly fine. So this is now good to go into production. So that's another one. This is actually going to go to a customer, because we've got 2 people waiting for this production run to be done, and I can change the resistor so it's 12 volts, and this is ready to go to the customer. So we have 2 that are actually usable, and luckily there's 2 orders that managed to buy before we ended them and put them out of stock. So those orders can now go as well. Oh yeah, these can handle 30 amp inrush. It's 10 volt constant, so we should be all right on that. And you can also just put whopping big caps on the rail, on the output rail. So while it's sat off and primed, the caps will have plenty of current, and then when it kicks in, the caps will handle that. So yeah, obviously when I design it, I'll do all the stress testing anyway. But yeah, it shouldn't be an issue. But I haven't even really got that far to do the test. I did a very rough test at one point when I was speccing up what it might be needed to do. so we should be good. And you can also daisy chain these. So the way these regulators are worked, you can actually daisy chain two and get 20 amps. There's loads of flexibility now they're working. And these have been in the Dreamcast Clean Power now for, I think, 12 months. And they're now hitting the Sega Saturn, so they're a pretty established design now. So I should be comfortable putting them into an OG Xbox. But obviously, I'll do all these kind of tests before we do. I don't just make a product and dump it into production. What else will you do to stress test it? That's the stress test for the thermals. I get the oscilloscope out to monitor the rails, which I've done multiple times on this design, so I'll still do it before it goes out. In the enclosure in an actual console to make sure when it's covered it doesn't thermally overheat as well. I normally leave like Sega Saturns running for a few days in the room, just running a game and make sure nothing crashes. Right, so I can plug my keyboard back in now. Finishing time soon. I don't know what time we're even on. 5 past. Yeah, probably another hour, maybe. Might just have to get a coffee though. Other than that, no. If I knock off too soon, I get bored. Right, what's next? Mine now, I think. Oh, let me clean this up. A little bit of dirt on my desk. So the last thing that... Oh, no, it's not the last thing. We've got a Game Gear as well. If I manage to do it in time, I've got to diagnose a Game Gear as well. It's, I think, not loading game. Trying to save the customer a bit of money. Instead of charging them for a new re-PCB. I'm just going to try and quickly diagnose it. I wouldn't normally because my time and cost for diagnosing the Game Gear pretty much outweighs having it put on a re-PCB. But I figured it would make probably a bit of good streaming as well, showing you diagnosing a Game Gear. In fact, I might do that first because I just can't be bothered to install a clean light, to be honest. I'm not that enthusiastic about doing the clean light. I might leave that to Zach tomorrow because he actually built my personal one. So he's built this for me. I'm tempted to swap out the laminated back to an original as well, but I don't know. Might leave that in. But yeah, I'm going to change the buttons to clear black, I think, on this, and then put the clean RGB in so I can change the clean light RGB, so I can change the colours, make it like a nice rainbow or something. And that's just testing a new baby board I've made. So the Game Boy Advance doesn't have a good enough regulator to power lights very good off a 5-volt rail. So I might do that, but let's do the Game Gear first. I'm just more in the mood for that. So I can't remember what this was. That's all the screws in there. That board, so we don't really need any of this. I'll put this back on the desk. And I just remember I was meant to have done this last week and totally forgot about it. So what do we need? Audio. Oh yeah, we need an amp. That. Where is? There we go. Got a clean amp with a battery stuck to it. Got what game shall we use? I don't know why I asked that. You know what game it's going to be. Sonic 2, the only game I ever test with. Right, I presume this doesn't work and doesn't load game, as my guess. Hardest job. Probably overall that took me the longest, or I struggled with the most. There was a Sega Megatech. I knew nothing about them. Ended up spending weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks staying up through the night, writing a massive article on Retro6.wiki on how it all works. Pretty much reverse engineered the entire arcade machine. Like, I'm not joking. Pretty much every single part of that arcade machine now I know, which nobody else knew before. There was no info on it. Managed to fix up that. Got another 2 in, fixed them 2 up. But that was some challenge. And then the irony with that was some guy on the forum started slagging me off, so I don't work on them anymore, just because they were trying to slag it off, saying some of the work on it was not good or soldering, and it was a part that I'd never even worked on, like a part of the board that's got nothing to do with what I worked on. And I actually put in tons of hours unpaid just because that's what I like doing. And I just didn't get the respect from it, basically, so I stopped working on them. And then the Macintosh SE, the Apple SE30, that was a bit of a challenge. That's what we started streaming on. Figured that out again now, and now I know a lot about them. But that, because I knew nothing about them, that was technically challenging for a while. It's like anything. I think anything you go on that you don't know something about is hard until you gain some base knowledge. The step from knowing nothing to knowing a little bit is the longest part. And then once you start knowing a little bit, you start chunking your knowledge up a lot faster. We are doing, well, we've done, so far, we've tested a USB-C power for Sega Saturn, which is a product I've made. So we just stress tested this a minute ago. It's basically, you can change your Sega Saturn to USB-C. We have got 3 Game Boy lights. So these are Game Boy pockets with backlights. This is my personal one. You can't see the backlight with the lights on, but this is an original backlight. And then these are a customer that had green backlights installed that I modded, and we changed them to yellow. So I don't think anybody on the stream's particularly overexcited about the yellow. It was nice and bright green, like this green kind of thing. Now it's yellow, but that's what the customer wants. So that's 2 things we did. We've tested a few components on, we're doing a whole lot at the minute. So this is a PC Engine board, a handheld PC Engine GT. I was soldering this little connector on. So we have this connector that's normally just a ribbon that you solder straight down. We've soldered this, like sourced this connector that fits. This was quite hard to find. Soldered that on. We then did, we checked the DC jack that we were sourcing as well. So this DC jack we found a replacement for. Just a bunch of stuff, basically. We're working through a load of different things at the minute, just trying to clear off a bunch of little tasks. TikTok have confirmed my appeal is denied for gifting, so nobody can gift on TikTok for 7 days. Not that that matters. I think I got 12 pence in the last 3 weeks, so I think they spent more time reviewing my account than they did banning the gifting. Good old TikTok. It's getting worse, that app is, definitely. I swapped my soldering iron, so we've got now an awesome new soldering iron that tells me when I need a coffee, and would you look at that, it's telling me I need a coffee. So we've got a nice little coffee icon. That's definitely an indicator that I need to go get one. I keep saying it. And then we're just about to diagnose a Game Gear now. This one, I presume, doesn't boot. And then if I get time, I'm going to mod my Game Boy Advanced as well. So this is get my Game Boy Advance, literally, and I've just upgraded it with a AA rechargeable USB mod that I've made, a new one. So this is being stress tested. But I've also got LEDs that go in it, a new product, Clean Light RGB. This has got my old one in, so this has got UV lights in, and they're not colour changing, but if I hold them, you can see that getting brighter. So see how bright they are on the desk now. And these are real UV lights and UV reactive buttons. So if I turn the lights off a minute, you'll see then that obviously they've only been on seconds, but we turn them off, glow in the dark buttons. So if you leave that on while you're playing away when the lights are on, which is what you do, and then after you're done, you turn them off, you just get a cool little glow. I just find that cool. Or you can be playing and then you can just hold the 2 buttons and you can turn the lights off while it's still on and just have glowy buttons for a while. So they're going down, down, down and off. Now you can just play away and you've got little glowy buttons. They don't look very glowy on camera, but they are. It's a fixed exposure camera. but that's quite bright, and the longer you leave them on, the longer they glow. But those are obviously fixed LEDs, so I'm going to remove them, change the buttons to clear black, and put the colour change clean light RGB in, and mainly because I need to test this product as well. So again, this is a new product I need to actually test before we sell it. So that'll sit inside of these over them buttons, and then we have all the colour change LEDs. Right, so that's that one. Game Gear. I'm definitely going to grab a coffee though. So back in 2 seconds. Let me just go chuck the coffee machine on and we'll get a look at this. Get my little sticky note in case anyone's wondering. Oh, he's not a... Should have just pointed at the soldering iron from now on instead of putting my little note up. Oh, the light's terrible. Go on, get around there. There we go. You can just about see. Yeah. These things. So if you've got an order waiting, I've just tested them, they're fine. We've got 2, but we've already got a few outstanding that pre-ordered them. Well, they ordered them when we ran out of stock and they're happy to wait. But yeah, they're all confirmed. They're getting into production tomorrow morning once I've tested it in a Sega Saturn and left it running. And they'll be about 3 weeks. We've had a bit of a delay because we've had to move factory. Well, we haven't had to move factory. We've moved factory and saved a load of cost. But then we've had to go through all the testing phase again, basically. So just grabbing a coffee and I'll bring it in. 2 seconds. Alright, so much for a coffee. The missus has already made me a cup of tea, so it's better than nothing. Yeah, I can mute the mic if I want to. That's how good the thing is, but no. Just talking about taking Rusty for a drink and picking him up, I'm not too fussed about that, but I can just press this button here to mute. But yeah, I'd normally mute it if I'm going away. But I was just going to grab a coffee, so it doesn't really matter. Right, so let's see what's going on with this Game Gear. We can power it first from, and this has got the original screen on, so we need to watch out that we don't get zapped here, basically. Don't need that because we've got actual audio board and put Sonic in. Bit of IPA for good luck. I cannot get a good IPA dispenser these days. The one I had broke, and every other one I get seems to leak or just not work after 2 days. Right, so that's that. Flip over. USB cable wrapped around everything. Plug in. Yeah, it works. Oh no, it does work. I forget. Sorry, it works, but we've got this corruption that is most typically. When you see this, you might think it is the ASIC. So if you've been watching along and we're doing the re-PCBs, so these things, where it's my board and we swap these over. Normally when you see glitches like this, it's the VDP. This one isn't, because we swapped the VDP to just be sure, but the fact you kind of see Sonic and it's chunky is actually more of an indication that it's this VRAM. And if it isn't this VRAM, then it's likely traces. So I think Zach's also swapped the VRAM. So we know it's not the actual chips, it's not this VRAM, and it's not the VDP. So therefore it's going to be a broken trace between here and the ASIC. So this will be fairly simple. I'll show you how to do this. We will, let's leave all this running. We'll zoom in on this. So I'm just going to focus on this chip here. That's got some annoying glare, so let's put a sponge under it for now. Lighten it up a bit too much. Yeah, that'll do. Focus in, and what I'm going to do is get an oscilloscope. And if you want to learn all this, it's on Retro6. .wiki. There's loads of info if you want to kind of learn how to repair yourself. Let me get a wire for ground for the oscilloscope probe. And we need to pick a ground. I can't remember where ground is on here, so I'm just going to go on here for now. Probably the worst possible ground place you could pick, but should be good enough for what we need. This is even in fact, that's even going through a filter, so we won't use that. I think down here on the screw hole is ground. Probably check that before we probe. So multimeter into continuity mode when it turns on. There we go. So ground on here, ground here. Yep, so that's a good ground. So probe's got ground. And what we're going to be looking for is a broken trace. So I'll show you, if we find it, what it looks like. But I'll show you the working signals. It could also be the... actually, no, it's got to be. There has to be a broken trace on here, really. There's nothing left. We swapped the two chips. We're pretty much guaranteed it's got to be a broken trace on here. Well, I say it is. There's also a very rare chance it could be the screen, but it's got classic VRAM chunky graphics, so I doubt it's that. So let's pull up the oscilloscope. Gee, that's hot. And we don't even need the... pull that over to there. We don't even need like the pin out of this chip. It doesn't matter. It's the VRAM. We'll probe it and we'll be able to see if there's a problem. Pull up that. Oh, wrong one. Go back over to that. So this is the scope. I'm going to set it up to 10 times probe. About 50 microseconds will be good. Collapse that down and then we probe away. So now if we just probe, say top pin, nothing, next pin, you've got data there. So we'll put a trigger on now so we can capture there. And you can see these hit about the 3.8, which is about okay. Put 20 meg filter on, or if we want to be even better, let's put on a 4 meg filter. Hasn't really helped, to be honest. 2 meg. No, it's got no better, so we'll turn that off, leave it at the 20 meg filter. Maybe go down to 20. So there you go. You can see that pulse anyway, nice and clear. We can probably also make the pulse a bit bigger just because it's not going to go above 5 volts, really. Although that doesn't like capturing and triggering on the 5. Yeah, so there we go. Anyway, that's one. Go to the next one. And you can see on here, if we go faster, these are what you get used to. You can see that some of the signal has, see how parts of it are, we put it full screen. See how parts of this are higher. So these chunks are 4.8 and these lower ones are 3.7. This is normal and this will be a data pin. So this is because there's 2 parts, the control this data, the Z80, well, there's 3 parts, the Z80, the game, and the A6. So this double kind of level of voltage is normal, and you wouldn't know that until you actually, you've seen this on a working one and you get used to it. So that's normal. That's not out of the ordinary. So that's what you're looking for. And then a broken one will be quite clearly much lower. So that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. And then this one we said at the start, this is probably going to be a ground, the fact that we don't get anything basically. And every other one so far has showed something on. So we've got the 2 levels, which are, we could probably put 2 bars on, to be honest. I think this one might be a little bit, that might be a broken trace actually, because that one was showing data and isn't anymore. Let's power cycle and see if that shows up. Oh yeah, I think I just maybe glitched it. Sometimes touching the pins, you can glitch the pins if you short them between each other. So we go down here now, and we should pretty much hit something that's, yeah, that one's still normal. If I just put that double line on so we can see the 2 points that we know are normal, like between them 2 white lines are normal. That's normal, normal, normal. So we've got this pin with nothing. So this is where obviously we pull the data sheet up as we need. So we know pin 3 has got nothing on at all. The pin down here has got nothing on. So if we remember that, we can obviously go from there. Normal. And the other thing it could be is a short as well. You could have a short under here. That's normal. Normal, normal. Normal, normal. 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 Normal, normal. Oh dear. So everything's normal except we have nothing on this pin. So either that pin is the problem and it shouldn't be, nothing, or I'm not sure where we go after that, if so, unless there's an internal short on the board, basically. So let's pull up the datasheet for this. Well, I've got the re-PCB I can just look at. Hey, welcome in. So we're nearly wrapped up. We're just fixing a game gear now. Well, we're hopefully going to fix it. Right, video RAM. If I go to the re-PCB, this is the benefit of making the board yourself. You can quickly look at the pins. Pin 3 is ground, so that's normal. So all them are normal. I guess the only other thing then is we could actually be dealing with a bad screen, but I just can't see it. I just cannot see that. I'm sure Zach said he swapped this chip and it looks reflowed. And there's one on his desk, so I trust that. There's no shorts on there. Nope, no shorts. So let's flip over. And we can check it's just a lot less likely to be the A6 side than the VRAM side, because it just is generally. So now what we need to look at is where all these traces go to this, which I think is down this side. So I'm just going to pull up the re-PCB again and look where they all go. So AD0, 1, nothing, 2, 3, 4, 5, nothing, 6, 7. Yeah, so that's ground. So there's 1 at the bottom, or 2 at the bottom, all at the side. That's at the side, that's at the side. Right, so every single pin on this, there's two down here, these bottom two, and I think it was the first two. So let's see if we see signals on, say, 3 of them. So signal on that one, signal on that one. And let me just double check it was the two. Yeah, the third one's ground. So those two are good. And then if we just check every pin down this side, that would eliminate every single video pin. So what we're looking for on here is corruption or missing data. And if I look at this, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So 5 pins up before the video data starts. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it starts here. That's good. Good. And then after 2, is that a ground? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Then then a disconnected, and then 1, 2, 3. We'll have 4 more. So that one is a disconnected pin. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have a ground, and then we have more data. Don't know how many more, but we're just looking for broken trace. So we've got 1 here, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 off the top, and 6 off the top is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 off top as ground. We've got 3 more, then a ground, then 1 more. So we've got 1, 2, 3, ground, and then that, which is 5 volts. So it's not a broken trace either way, and that's the reset. So that's all the pins good. So we are either dealing with really bad luck where Zach has swapped the VDP and has another VDP with exactly the same fault, which is just incredibly unlikely. So we're either dealing with, this being a VDP of exactly the same issue, or maybe this is a bad screen, or maybe bad connections down here. So that's, yeah, I didn't expect that. I would have said that was VDP, and I think it's looking like it's not the circuit board, unless there's an internal short on one of them pins, which is, again, almost impossible. So let's put some gentle heat on the screen. But if not, it is actually going to end up being a re-PCB for the customer. Because, well, a re-PCB or a clean screen. The clean screen will probably fix it if it is the screen issue. So I'll just put a gentle bit of heat on there and there to see if anything changes. Now, when you'd know, if it was the screen, you'd see something now. I can't see it being too bad VDPs with exactly the same visual. I just cannot see it being that. So, and to be honest, the way actually the graphics are scrolling in, you know what we haven't checked, and I forgot. This could be workaround, because it's very rare, but that could be workaround. And you have to be careful on this because it's still got the mains voltage in. Let's swap. In fact, it even could be the Z80. So let's swap the workaround. Have I got another one? Let's get the workaround off this. Yeah, it's going to be, like I say, very rare. It would be a workaround causing a video RAM style of visual. But let's just chuck it through how quick these are. We'll chuck one on. So I'm just going to flux this up, flux this one up, and hot swap between. So we'll go into there, we'll zoom in on this one, and I'll just hot air one off. And instead of you seeing me hot air one off and me faff with the cameras, I'm just going to leave that one in view while I hot air the other off. Hey, thanks, Ross. Let me know what you think at the end. Hopefully, when you watch back, we've fixed it. Well, we obviously can fix it, but we've got to try and keep within the customer's budget first in case they don't want this work doing, basically. Like, they don't want to pay for extra stuff, but I just can't see it being the I can't see it being the circuit board and it's giving off VRAM and VDP like issues. It could still be the CPU. It could be basically any of the chips. So just because I want to know what it is, and I think it's still chip related, I'm just going to swap chips until we see. And then if it turns out it is one of the chips, I'll screenshot this stream, put it on the wiki so others can see what it visually looked like when it failed and what it links to. Because I'm now suspecting, to be honest, the CPU is what I'm actually suspecting. And I think if I looked on my own wiki, I think we might find that we've had a CPU fail with video glitches before, and it was rare. So I bet anyone it's going to end up being the CPU, to be honest. But let's just swap these out first anyway. That's that one off, new one on. Somewhere like these have got that big of pins. You really don't need to bother with alignment at all. Just chuck it on, get it warm. Let surface tension do the rest for you. A bit of flux on there. Warm up. And then this thing should just pull over, I presume, when it's hot enough. Either way, it's in alignment now, so we can always nudge him over. There we go. So he's plenty fluxed up. Push him down. Let him cool. We are working on a Game Gear, trying to fix a visual issue that I thought looked like VRAM, but we've probed it and it's not actually. Well, we swapped the VDP the other day, swapped the video RAM. It's neither of them, so I presumed it must be then a broken trace, so we just scoped it and it wasn't that. So now I'm suspecting a CPU, but instead of swapping the CPU, I'm swapping the work RAM. But I now suspect, to be honest, it is this, because I'm sure on retro6.wiki that I have seen this once before when I'm doing these re-PCBs. I'm going to take a quick look because I'm sure I've seen it once before, and I was surprised because I expected it to be the VDP, and it was actually the CPU. So heatsink recent pulsing light data causing random screen garble. So it's been the CPU twice, but if I remember rightly, when it's been that, it's been like very non-existent data, not actual game data, but screwed. GG outputs random solid screen colors. No, nothing on screen or black or sometimes fully working now. Maybe we haven't had bad VDP. See, it just looks like bad VDP. So if we put that over, there's like an example of a bad VDP. It just looks like that, and yet it isn't. Or, like I say, we've been insanely unlucky, and it's been two bad VDPs when we swapped them over. If it's the CPU, I'll just swap the CPU, but the customer would just have to pay then for, really it's about 30 odd pounds, because it's basically the cost of a Game Gear. So I'd do the work, and if he didn't want to pay, then we could always take the CPU off, but I'd probably prove it first for how quick it is to prove, to make sure we know what we're telling the customer. So that is the work RAM on and cooled a bit, so let's see if that fixes it. I doubt it. No, so exactly the same issue there, same corruption, still loads. So I'm going to suspect CPU. The problem with this is we're going to get a bit melty on here because it's right next to the cartridge connector. There's no easy way to avoid this. You can try to avoid some of it. You can put like The best stuff I find is this fire retardant material. You can kind of put it like that, but it gets in the way of the reflow as well. Aluminium tape does nothing, it just spreads the heat to the actual components, so it's kind of a nothingness. So what I'll probably do here is try to protect this as much as possible. It's not going to be the end of the world, it doesn't make anything not function. You just visually don't want to burn something. Hey, welcome in. Yeah, not doing too bad, just wrapping up for the day now. Just hopefully going to figure out this Game Gear before we go. If I had tape that would stick to this, that's the other problem with this, is not sticky at all. Let's try masking tape. Get that down over. Third time lucky. I do these repairs from home. We used to have a shop, but now it's purely online retail. So, but the repairs side, I just do it from home, basically. There we go. That's as protected as we can get that plastic there, and I'll aim the hot air diagonally down. So let's swap this off for another CPU, and I think, to be honest, this is the most likely culprit now I think about it. If it's not the CPU, then this would definitely be what we class as beyond economical repair. It's going to make a lot more sense for the customer to have these two chips and the Z80 transferred to a RePCB. It's just going to be cheaper. So we've done enough diagnostics on it by the time we do this swap that's as far as I'd realistically take this, basically, before it makes a lot more sense to put a RePCB in. Oh, my mouse is clicking away up there. What are we working on? I can't remember if I've answered that one or if it's somebody else, but we're working on a Game Gear, trying to get some graphics glitches fixed up. I work very fast, thanks. Probably because I'm in a little bit of a rush to see Rusty now, to be honest. I want to go sit and chill and play Pokemon trading card game on the Game Boy Pocket as well. Another 5 seconds and this should lift off. Easiest console I've ever worked on. Game Boys, really, to be honest, they're pretty straightforward. Not much can go wrong with them, really. Those pins all look fine. I'm just going to dump this one straight on. Not even going to bother reapplying the solder on this. Yeah, I think the Game Boy handhelds are one of the simplest. I think when I started, they were obviously technically a little bit confusing and a tiny bit challenging, but by the time you've done a few, there's not many mysteries left there now. Game Gears were hard until I learned all about them, so not many people knew anything about Game Gears until I'd like to think I was quite a big part in helping people learn about the Game Gear, making Retro6.wiki and sharing all my info that I learned and stuff. And I'm certainly known in the Game Gear scene now, so these are now easy because I've just done so many. There's not many mysteries left on them. That's a new CPU on. Let's see if we melted plastic still. I'd say that's charred. Got a little bit there and a tiny bit there, which you can't really avoid if you're going to swap a CPU. But neither of them affect anything. They're well enough away from anything. It's not like touch the cartridge connector, and that's just holding a piece of plastic in covering the backlight. Yeah, Dreamcast can be a bit of a pain. I think mainly if you're doing GDMUs and stuff and the HDMI mods, the Noctua fans, I think the IC 601, is it, underneath. I've now added to the wiki. I recommend removing that at all times, because if that ever fails to detect a pulse on the fan, the pulse width modulation, it just turns off completely. So I always recommend removing that IC 601, I think it is, or 603. Heat and airflow on that was 470 Celsius, 80% airspeed. And these CPUs are off, obviously, consoles that we've taken them off, so we don't even know if this CPU is good. Chances are it is, but there's also a chance this replacement CPU isn't good, but we'll see. Usually they are. I've only come across, I think, 3 bad CPUs in hundreds of these now, so it's very unlikely the CPU's bad, but then, obviously, we think this one's bad for the customer, so I should probably check those solder joints as well. I haven't even really looked at them that close. Solder blob there. Good job we checked. On the data pins. Ooh, no depth perception on the camera. This iron takes a little bit longer to warm up than the other one, but that's no biggie. I don't mind waiting a few seconds. Oh, God, my neck's killing now. I sat at the desk a bit too long, I think. Those pins are meant to be joined together in the middle there. Yep, I think that all looks good. I think we are good for another test. So let's flip this over. It's got a tiny bit of flux off the bench on it, I want to clean off. What system we're working on? This is a Game Gear. So it's working, but it's got graphical glitches. And my IPA pump just doesn't work anymore again. I'll buy another one. And I keep wiping solder flux back on the screen. Clean it off with one wipe and wipe it back on with another. Alright, make sure I wipe it with the clean part. There. Right. Let's turn on this here. Nothing. So we've been unlucky and got a bad CPU. Or do we just need to spray the game again? So there you go, that's exactly the same. So it's not the CPU either. So at this point, obviously we could keep going and we could swap, well, I'll tell you what, we'll swap the Z80 and then all that proves is, for the customer then, it's had a, I'll probably clean this mess up before I put it back down on there. It's had a new VDP, a new work RAM, new video RAM, and it will have then had a new Z80. So that's every major chip on the board replaced and known good. And that means if it goes onto a re-PCB or he has a new screen, it's guaranteed to work 100%. So this is either going to be an issue with the actual screen is faulty, the original screen, or the Z80 is faulty. So the Z80 is the last culprit now. So let's grab a Z80. Sprayed IPA, isopropyl alcohol, just basically pure alcohol, just to clean the pins, and then inserting it in and out the game cartridge rubs them pins. So basically you've got them little gold pins inside there. You can probably see, I can just take it off so you can see more, but I'll zoom in and focus up. So those little circles there, they are gold pins, and they have little bits of dirt on unless you heavily clean it. The same as in the game slot here. Those gold pins down there. Basically, when you put alcohol in and you rub back and forward, inside here, you're rubbing both of them pins together, but with alcohol in, so it moves the dirt around. And same reason why kind of blowing in your cartridge as a kid, going, you're basically blowing moisture in, and then when you're inserting in and out, that moisture moves around the dry dirt. That's why blowing in the cartridges used to work. I'm going to go with the Z80. I've rarely seen a screen fail that way, but we'll see. Just aiming the air away as much as possible from this corner, but we'll probably singe these corner bits. Considering this is very likely going to be re-PCB'd or the screen taken out, one of the two. The Z80 is a CPU, so it's the Zilog Z-I-L-O-G, a Zilog Z80, very common off-the-shelf baby. I call it an MPU microprocessor, but it is kind of a CPU. A generic part. They've just stopped manufacturing them very recently, so they were actually making them right up until very recently. You could actually buy these new still, even though they're crazily out of date. And we could also be dealing with bad traces, obviously, between these components, but again, me diagnosing the traces is way more work than me swapping it onto a re-PCB. So cost-wise to the customer, doesn't make sense anymore to trace every pin on all of these chips to try and find a break. We traced the video RAM because it was the most likely culprit, but I wouldn't go tracing the whole board. It just makes no sense. Cheap solder paste is in actual solder paste, like, so instead of using solder, you're putting paste on a stencil and reflowing. If so, then so long as it isn't dry and you add your extra flux, there's not much difference. But the main difference between cheap and expensive in that way is simply the flux more so than the solder. Because obviously solder's lead, tin, nickel, whatever else goes in it, that is what it is. You can't improve on that. It's more the flux mix that makes it better. You know, one better than the other is really the quality of the flux inside the mix. Oh God, this neck is killing. Definitely been sat at my desk too long today. Alright, that's the last swap we're going to do. Let that sizzle away. Leave up my desk a bit because that's as far as we're taking this one anyway. I'll go have some tea. Oh, what are we thinking? Do we think it's going to work or fail? Can go back over. Yeah, the chair says moved back to front. I flipped the camera at the top like you would on a mobile phone. So when I'm looking at my own stream and I'm pointing left and right, like this to me is my left side. So on screen it's still left, even though technically, if it was a true reflection, then it'd be backwards. So it just confuses you when you're looking at your own stream otherwise. Yeah, see, like a lot of people are going to think it's the screen. I think the screens are faulty a lot, but they're not normally faulty in this way. That's what's throwing me, because the screen would have, it almost can't be the screen because it doesn't hold the video data to be able to show it in them kind of blocks. It's pretty much a single frame push through. Now, it's not saying it can't be. It could still glitch out internally where it realigns certain parts of the circuit. It's possible. It's just one of them that I don't think it would be. So let's see. Right then, moment of truth. Actually, spray the game for good luck, because this also seems to have a slightly dodgy connector. Right then, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Oh, the suspense. No, still the screen. Well, if it is the screen, it could also be these traces internally, even though they're balling out, they could be shorting together internally. Or we could have a cartridge port glitching. I just can't see it. But either way, yeah, this has got all good chips on it now. So I keep forgetting this has got the original backlight. I nearly touched it. These chips are all good. So the two over there, the two over here, definitely good. We've swapped them all. So that means if the customer puts this on a VPCB, it's going to work. But that means you'd have to have a screen as well. But yeah, I've never from memory seen a screen, an original screen corrupt this way. In fact, I'll tell you the telltale sign that says this is the screen, actually. Probably should have noticed that. Oh, it's not as obvious there now. So in the video RAM, you've got obviously positions in memory. So you've got lanes and things, columns and rows. So you'd see these repeating lines going up and down are in a distinctive position, say 8 pixels away or 4 pixels away. And the same, you see like these blocks repeating. I wish Sonic could stop moving. Stop bloody moving. So basically all these blocks will be in very specific pixels, but you see here there's 2 pixels. And the reason I now kind of think it wasn't or couldn't have been the video RAM is, where did I see it clearly? I think it was on here. Yeah, so get that brightened up. See this line here? This one line going up is not in line with this corrupt line here. So this corrupt line goes down, but then staggers over here, and then staggers back here. So the number of pixels between that stagger down and up, I don't think could be VRAM. It could be, but I just don't think so. But either way, we know it's not the VDP because it's been swapped, and we know it's not all the other chips. And we've also balled out all the connections from video RAM to VDP as well. So everything about it that would be most common, it isn't. So it could be connections between these two bad, connections from CPU to ASIC bad. But again, probing all of these pins and all of these pins that I used to do would take like 40 minutes, whereas I can chuck this on a VPCB in 15 minutes. And you could also spend that 40 minutes diagnosing this and find out that you can't find a fault still, and it could be the cartridge connector. You go down such a long rabbit hole that we used to do when we were fixing them, but now we have the VPCB as an option, which is basically, you know, chucking the chips on this brand new board. And all we've got to do is chuck that chip, and that chip on, and we've just done that on this board. We could have already fixed it. It just isn't worth telling the customer or recommending to the customer that that's what we do. It just isn't worth the labour time. So yes, we could fix this, we could keep going, but I'm going to call that quits and tell the customer the best option is basically a VPCB and a clean screen is the way I'd go with this. If he doesn't want to do that, he knows he's got at least good chips. So if he wanted to sell this, potentially even sell it to us, we could buy it off him for the chips because we know they're good. But hopefully he'll go with an actual board swap and we'll get this one up and running for him. So let's just pack these away now. Original Xbox, what's the error code? It's more than likely going to be usually the hard drive that goes in some way. So you've probably got an error code related to your hard drive. But we fixed them all up. obviously retro6.co.uk, and you can get them all fixed up. Oh yeah, I've got Fantastic Dizzy for Game Gear. It's good. You want to play the Super Fantasy Zone as well. That's a really good game on it. You want the retro sticks for that though, the analog stick. That makes Super Fantasy Zone really good at playing it with an analog thumbstick. Right, so that's the customers done. They're the known working chips they can have back at the minute. Mine, I'll either do later or give it Zach to do. I'll see. But for now, I think that's it. We've got my nice little new iron. We got quite a lot sorted there. And we got banned off TikTok twice for doing nothing. So we'll see how that goes. Z80s are a few pounds. I brought pretty much most of the remaining stock left in China because they no longer make them, so I've got tubs full of them. Right, I will catch everybody probably tomorrow. Thanks for joining in.